Hello, upper limits versus ultimate limits. Now, this is pretty much similar to the fuse that I talked about before. Is we have these ultimate limits in engineering, but we also have this software, these inner limits that tell us, in a lift shaft, like, oh, if we're programmed to go 10 floors, we only go 10 floors. We think that's the upper limit. But ultimately, we may have another 10 floors in us. And if you look at your life and your actual potential versus what you're living in, I think a boiler's got a good way of showing this. Like we put the thermostat at where we want the heating to be, and when it gets to that temperature, it kicks in and it stops and it stays there until it gets to a certain temperature, then it kicks back in again, but we stay within this range that we've set. It's not the potential, but that we've set it. And if we change that limit, it changes the outcome, it changes our environment. And these limits that we have, that they are narratives that we've set. And have a think. So are you living to your upper limits, or are you living within your ultimate limits? I spoke before on a video about fuses and how fuses, stop us from getting hurt in engineering. But in life, we can faint before we actually die. And we have this internal thing that stops us. But generally in business, we have this software that's programmed that tells us what our upper limits are, and they're not the truth. They're just what we've learned from the environment around us, from our families. How much do they earn? How happy are they? What sort of freedom do they have? And we're grown up within those confounds of our or confinements of those narratives, but they're not the truth. That they're just our beliefs. And have a think, what are your inner limits versus your ultimate limits, and what if you was to make some adjustments, what could you actually start doing that was a little bit out of your comfort zone, but actually nowhere near your limitations, but just maybe a bit more uncomfortable. This is an interest for you, something you want to explore a little bit more. Book a 30-minute course correct call. There's a link in the blurb, and drop on to a call to have a look at what is the truth in where you're at, and how you're living, and what is that potential, if you want to explore a little bit more. Take care.